So I got asked a good question today, which was, how do I deal with negative people? How do I deal specifically with people who are trying to bring me down, trying to make me feel bad, trying to question what I'm doing, what my progress is, and it's almost like trying to transfer negativity over to me. And well, it was framed as, how do you deal with it? Meaning, how do I deal with it? And I said, nowadays, I don't combat it. I don't offer advice. So if somebody complains to me, or they say something to me like, oh, I've got problems with this, or I've got problems with that, or they're just generally being negative, I don't offer advice. I don't offer contradiction. I don't offer an argument. I don't offer a solution. And the reason why I don't offer advice, contradiction, or solutions is because it just plays back into that victim, savior, fake dynamic. I'm being invited to play a game with that person, and I don't have to accept the invite. One thing that I found that seems to work, it works for me, is if somebody is complaining and being particularly negative around me, is I will look at them with meditative, mindful awareness, and I will listen to them with full conscious awareness as they speak. So they're saying whatever it is they're saying, presumably looking to get a reaction from me, and I'll just look at them and I'll listen to them. I won't look at them with contempt or horror or rage or anything. I will give them a neutral expression. I'll just look at them and listen to them. If they demand an answer, they get cranky and they're like, well, what do you think? I will mirror back what they said. I will say, I heard you say that things are not going very well for you and your husband. I think I heard you say that you're not very happy with the state of such and such a thing in your life right now. And at that point, what I fantasize is happening and might be happening is that in the absence of me offering more content back, and in the face of me just offering presence and awareness and mindfulness, it gives them the opportunity to hear themselves. So they're engaging in insincere communication. It's a reaction-seeking communication. And in the absence of that reaction, they're facing a vacuum, a silence, a silent space in which the hollowness of their words echoes around. When I'm doing that, if it goes on for longer than sort of 15 seconds, I try to look at the person, not because they're not communicating sincerely. I don't interact with them naively. Because they're not communicating sincerely, I don't interact naively. I say, okay, this is not a sincere communication coming from an adult to adult egalitarian stance. This is a manipulation. This is an effort to draw some reaction from me, to bring me down, or to burden me with their trouble. So I'm not going to look at them naively. I'm going to look at the way I would look at somebody in coaching, which is I try to see the child in the adult. So behind the posturing, adult ego personality, aren't I so smart, aren't I so clever, so witty, if somebody's there because they need help and they're in coaching, you have to look to beyond that, to the child that they still are. It's not even an inner child, it's that they are a child in an adult's body, trying to sell you a version of themselves, trying to sell you an idea of who they are that is not authentic. They're trying to assert the false self onto you. Everybody does this. It doesn't matter if we're talking narcissism, codependency, or anything in between. Everybody has a false self that masks the authentic self. So when I'm getting a lot of negativity and complaining, I observe, I detach, I listen, and I look. And I look at them as though I can see the child inside of the adult. And I think, what's this child looking for? Well, what are all children looking for? They want to be seen. They want an adult to see them. They want to be heard. They wish to be witnessed. They wish to be validated. They wish to be affirmed. They wish to be given a little cuddle, a little pat on the ego. And so I look and I say, okay, this person wants something from me. They want validation from me. They don't want advice. They don't want a solution. They either want an emotional reaction from me, positive or negative. They might be trying to burden me with their troubles and bring me down. Or they want validation, which is cheap because I haven't consented to offering my validation and I'm having it coerced from me. I didn't say I would offer you validation. There is nothing in the agreement that says I will offer you validation just because you ask for it. So it's a cheapening experience, cheapening for them and for me. So I can say no to that, the impulse to please and the impulse to offer them validation. And I can sit in conscious awareness in a meditative state and look at them. And I don't say no to them. I don't need to say no to them. They're not communicating with them sincerely. They're not communicating with me sincerely. So I won't communicate with them naively. And inside of my mind, I will say, no, I'm not offering you validation. But I will look at you. And I will listen to you. And if you ask me if I've heard you, I will say yes. And I will repeat back what you said to me or what I thought I heard with no inflection, no tone, no meta-communication through the face, no judgment, no anger. I'll say, this is what I heard you say. Sometimes you're being invited to battle. Sometimes you're being invited to feel bad on somebody else's behalf. Sometimes you're being invited to merge with the other person. They're actually saying, please take on my troubles, my woes, my feelings as though they were your own. You have a right to refuse the invitation to merge. You have a right to say no. But the first person you need to say no to is yourself. So the impulse to please, the impulse to merge, the impulse to offer a solution will come up. And then we have to say to ourselves, no, I'm not doing that. Not every invitation to battle needs to be met with an unconscious yes. Not every invitation to merge needs to be met with a neurotic, unconscious, knee-jerk yes. We can just say no. We can say no and not become upset. We can say no and not be defensive. We can say no and we can smile. Or we can say no and we can just look and just listen and go, okay. That's what you're saying. You are saying what you're saying. You are you and I am me. You're saying what you're saying. You have your reasons for saying it. I can guess what your reasons are, but I can never really know. But I am me, and this is my body. This is my brain. This is my breath. I'm sat listening to you. I'm aware that I'm breathing in and out, and I'm looking at you, and I'm listening to you, and I'm present, and I'm here. But just because I'm present and I'm here doesn't mean I'm going to be drawn into any silly games. I'm not going to be made to play games. Made to play games, coerced into playing games. And this is how it usually plays out. I think most narcissistically abusive relationships are an invitation to play games that we fail to refuse. To that point, having touched on narcissism momentarily, let me just remind you all that it doesn't actually matter whether the person you're interacting with has narcissistic personality disorder or indeed any personality disorder. It's actually not your job and never has been your job to figure that out. You can't figure it out. Not to a nicety, not to a conclusive, not to a real conclusion. But what you can do is you can say, is this behavior abusive? Is this behavior exploitative? And if you're not sure, compare it to the opposite by asking, is this behavior loving? Is this behavior kind? Is this behavior thoughtful? And if the answers are no, then you can start to reason whether they are actually abusive, exploitative, and whether the purpose of the communication is to generate feelings of, let us say, confusion, hurt, jealousy, insecurity, rage, or anything else. These would then become reaction-seeking communications. they're not sincere communications. You cannot reply with sincerity to insincere communications. You should not reply with naivety when somebody is communicating with you in an insincere way. So that's my advice for dealing with negative people trying to get reactions from you, people trying to bring you down. I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments. Try and keep them relevant and useful for the majority of people who are here, and make it legible and understandable, and have it end in a question mark. That would be enormously helpful to me. How do I deal, says Sazuzel, with my emotional flashbacks and move on while still living in my childhood home where all the trauma occurred? Can I still move on? Or do I need to get out? You can heal. I have a free course that helps you to overcome emotional flashbacks and to heal and move on. It's on YouTube. It's called the Fortress Mental Health Protection System. It's free. It's a step-by-step guide. It's simple, easy to use, and pretty exhaustive. And will help you in this regard. Jivendra, where are the ego and superego structures located? Superego is in your left ear, ego is in your right ear. Where is trauma stored? In your left nostril. These are models. They're not geographically or biologically located in the body. Tata says, when the invitation is made as a hook on a text, yes, then you just do the same thing, but through the text format. Or you don't reply. It's completely up to you. Or you pretend you didn't see it and you go back to whatever it is you need to be discussing with that person. If you're getting a lot of that kind of communication from them, there is also, I believe, the option to block the person. Goofy Dandelion says, how do you deflect anger from negative people after you refuse to supply them? I don't concern myself with deflecting anger from negative people. If they're angry, then they're angry. Deflecting it would imply there's some sort of energy that comes out of their body and reaches out to mine that needs shielding or deflecting. There is no energy. Nothing is touching me. They are angry. They are experiencing anger inside of their bodies, inside of their minds, and I don't need to do anything about that. Unless what I'm deflecting is a knife, in which case, move quickly and decisively. Can someone have CPTSD, BPD, and covert narcissism all at the same time? Absolutely. BPD and covert narcissism are very close cousins. And it's all CPTSD. These are all trauma responses. BPD and NPD are trauma responses. Lee says, thank you for your advice. Appreciate the honesty. No problem at all, Lee. You're very welcome. How to be mentally strong to achieve while narcissistic abuse is going on. I have courses that help people to reduce their emotional flashbacks and to develop their emotional literacy. If you can, if it's practical, you should seek to cease or reduce contact with the person who is offering you the narcissistic abuse. Katie, how do you easily determine if communication is sincere versus insincere? It's pretty clear, right? I would think it's pretty clear. If somebody is being sincere, then they're consistently communicating in a way that is clear, is related to an obvious objective, and you're not left feeling confused and slimed after the communication. It's nice, clear, sincere communication. If you're constantly wondering, is it me, is it them, where are they coming from, then that's an indication that the communication is not sincere. Just write your questions once, please, guys. Don't copy and paste and then spam. Pfizer asks, do you think people who are recovering are mainly looking for secure attachment unconsciously? I think all human beings are looking for secure attachment, not just people who are in recovery. Everybody's looking for secure attachment. Swallow ISN, how to behave with someone who's projecting angry on you using offensive language. The way I would deal with it, if somebody's being very angry and swearing at me, is I would say, I don't know why you're swearing. I'm not swearing. I don't know why you're shouting. I'm not shouting. And then I'd say, you need to stop swearing at me and stop shouting. And then I think the next level would be for me to physically move from the place where that was taking place. I'm going to stand there while somebody's shouting and swearing at me. I'm an adult. I have options. I have a vehicle and debit and credit cards that I can use. So I'll just go somewhere else to a room where they are not. Kim asks, are the same ways of dealing with negative people applicable with your teenage children? Yeah, they are applicable. They're your children, though. You need to know why they're speaking to you in these ways. Why are your children engaging in reaction-seeking behavior with you? Are they flexing the muscles of their emotional manipulation ability? Are they being wind-up merchants, or is there something else going on there? That's for you to ascertain with your own children. Mizzy Tav asks, how to deal with oneself when he's acting negative. The way I told you in this video is probably going to be the best way to do it. How to improve indecisiveness. I think that I would be primarily concerned with looking at what the indecisiveness offers you. So if you're consistently indecisive, I'd say, where's the advantage in being indecisive? What's the risk of being decisive that I'm trying to avoid? And I would address those things first and foremost. Rosella asks, how has mindfulness helped you, Richard? Well, if I remember to do it, and I remember make time for meditation and trying to be more aware and conscious, it helps in every way imaginable. So if something is painful, it hurts less if you're mindful. If something is pleasurable, it's more pleasurable if you're mindful. If you have something to do, you'll be more effective at doing it if you're mindful. And if you have nothing to do, you're going to have a great time if you're doing nothing mindfully. UG Rose, one shouldn't feel bad for ignoring a person using a need for forgiveness as a way to get back in after grey rocking. That's my own guilt to manage. That's a long sentence. The person you're ignoring is using their need for forgiveness or your need for forgiveness. If a person you're ignoring because of, or you're grey rocking a person because of something that they've done or a consistent pattern of abusive behavior, you need do nothing in relation to what they're doing or saying. If you feel guilty about it, then yes, the guilt is the problem, not their behavior as such. If a stranger insulted you, would you insult them back? I mean, it would really depend on context and intent. Sometimes people will do that because they're being funny, in which case, yes. If it was a genuine attempt at aggression, it has been a long time since anybody's openly insulted me to my face. Would I insult them back? I can't even imagine a scenario where somebody would do that. Probably not. I would probably assume that they were like not in their right mind and just drop it. or I'd knock them out. Joking. Of course I wouldn't do that. Super awareness about inner boundaries, right? Yes, your internal boundaries are really, really very important. Thank you, Raggedy Cat, for the super sticker. You guys don't need to send me money. I appreciate it very much, but there's no need to send me cash. I've got loads. Not that it'll be useful in the New World Order, of course, once communism takes over full swing. Omara67, if we all have a false self, which is natural, how do we reduce it to the bare minimum so as to be more authentic and know it's truly authentic? Well, I think this is it's a big challenge for us, because everything in every human society and in every human culture leans towards conformity because of, I suspect, evolutionary drives related to safety. So being a rebel or being an outlier could literally lead to death. So we are hardwired for conformity. Conformity requires the development of a false self, because you're conforming, to cultural coordinates that were not created by you when you were born into a particular tribe or culture. The language, the body postures, the tone of voice, these are not yours. So how do we become authentic? I wouldn't personally fetishize authenticity outside of the realm of narcissism and codependency. Two reasons. One, when a codependent is being inauthentic, it costs them. It hurts them. So that's something that needs fixing. When a narcissist is operating from a false self, it hurts others. So that's an emergency that really we should be doing something about if we can at all. For the average human being, I don't know, you could disappear up your own bottom hole worrying about whether you're being a false self or authentic. And I wouldn't fetishize it. So there are contexts in which the false self is toxic. We must do something about that. For somebody who doesn't have a toxic false self, I wouldn't want to create like what they do in cults is they create a level of consciousness that everybody has to aspire to that makes you special, that's higher up the pyramid, that's higher up the rank. We don't want to do that. If you're basically being honest with yourself and honest with other people, and you don't have CPTSD, you didn't come from a place of childhood trauma or a very traumatic adult relationship, or you weren't trapped in an institution or a political prisoner, these things are not, I wouldn't worry about them over much unless they are giving you trouble. I wouldn't want to fetishize it too much. If you're being honest, if you're telling the truth about who you are and what you want, that's probably about as authentic as you need to be. Okay, I've zoomed down to the bottom. Any more questions, guys? Caroline Swetlikoff says, isn't it unsafe to be ostracized from the tribe? It absolutely is. It's not sometimes it's a metaphysical fear, being ostracized from the tribe, so we can overreact to it and be a bit neurotic about it. Sometimes it's a very real fear. Especially in times when we lived in tribes, ostracization equals death through exposure, almost certainly. So okay, last question. When you know something is going to produce a flashback in you, do you avoid it? I would rather you didn't. I would rather you did the work to resolve the flashbacks so that wasn't a problem for you anymore, if it's all possible. That would be my preference. When a situation or a person or a context has the power to induce an emotional flashback in you, it effectively has power over you. And I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention on that one. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.